Atomic Habits by James Clear. A mason strikes a large stone, perhaps 100 times, without any signs of cracks appearing on the stone. However, on the 101st strike, the stone splits in two. I know that the result is not solely from the final strike but rather the cumulative effect of the preceding continuous strikes. A massive block of ice is placed in a cold room, and the temperature gradually rises, 26 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice remains unchanged. The temperature continues to increase to 29 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, 31 degrees Fahrenheit, yet still nothing happens. Then, as the temperature rises to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice begins to melt. The temperature has only increased by 1 degree Fahrenheit, seemingly no different from the previous situations, but it triggers a significant change. Moments of breakthrough often result from a series of prior actions. These actions accumulate the potential needed to bring about significant transformation. As the saying goes, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and every habit originates from a small, individual decision. This pattern of transformation aligns with all progress in our lives, proving that, as long as you are willing to persist, seemingly small and inconspicuous changes, when accumulated over time, compound into significant results. Starting small and maintaining consistent habits is the only path to progress. Do not underestimate the power of small habits. The habits you possess will produce corresponding results. This means that by cultivating better habits, anything is possible. Everyone likes to set goals for themselves. When you want to lose weight, you set goals. When you want to excel at work, you set goals. And when you want to build more harmonious family relationships, you set goals. However, among these countless goals, only a small fraction can truly be achieved. Why? The reason lies in your system. What is the difference between goals and systems? The purpose of setting goals is to win the competition. The purpose of building a system is to continuously engage in this competition, with a focus on long-term thinking rather than being confined to specific goals. Building a system is not about achieving any single accomplishment but rather a continuous process of refinement and progress. In this process, individual perseverance determines your progress. It can be said that only when people forget their goals and focus on the incremental improvement of the system can they achieve extraordinary results. Assuming your living space is in chaos, and you set a goal for a major cleanup. If you muster the courage to start tidying up, your living space will become clean and tidy, at least for the moment. However, if you maintain the habits that originally led to the mess, such as bringing things into the house without organizing, neglecting to dispose of unnecessary items, or failing to put things back where they belong, you will soon see your room becoming cluttered again. The fundamental reason for repeating the same mistakes is that you have never changed the system that leads to these situations. Everything you do is merely addressing the symptoms, not the root cause. Therefore, what truly needs to change is the system that leads to these results, not the goals you set. Habits play a crucial role in the integrity of the system, acting like the atoms in our lives, with each basic unit contributing to your overall progress, even if they are only marginal improvements of 1%. These subtle habitual actions may seem insignificant, but soon they start to interdepend, injecting momentum into larger victories, expanding exponentially beyond the initial investment. So, if you want to achieve a certain goal, the key is not to constantly elevate a particular goal but to implement your system. Let good habits make your system more effective, and then you can attain more significant success. However, in the process of practical application, we all find that changing bad habits and establishing good habits in life is very challenging. Once habits are formed, whether they are good or bad, we no longer pay attention to what we are doing. Our behavior begins to be governed by the subconscious, as if we have switched ourselves to autopilot. We often react without thinking. In this situation, recognizing and changing those undesirable habits becomes even more difficult. Nevertheless, effective methods can still be found. The author believes that the most effective approach is to consciously clarify who you want to become, as your identity, in turn, shapes your habits, just as your habits shape your identity. If you read a little every day and gradually develop the habit, you will start to see yourself as a book enthusiast. If you engage in daily physical exercise, you will begin to perceive yourself as a fitness enthusiast. As you repeat these actions, evidence will accumulate, and your self-image will transform accordingly. It can be said that the process of forming habits is essentially the process of becoming yourself. And these changes require incremental, day-by-day, habit-building accumulation. To cultivate good habits, are there simple rules that can be followed? The answer is affirmative. The author of the book shares 4 simple rules, which are: 1. Make it obvious. 2. Make it attractive. 3. Make it easy. 4. Make it satisfying. In Japan, train drivers periodically point to different objects and shout out instructions while the train is in operation. When the train approaches signal facilities, the driver will point to them and say, "The signal light is green." When the train enters or leaves a station, the driver will point to the speedometer and shout out the displayed speed value. When the train departs from the station, the driver will point to the timetable and announce the displayed time. On the platform, other staff members also make similar gestures. Before each train departs, the staff will point to the platform edge and announce, "All clear," identifying, pointing out, and loudly stating every detail. This process is called pointing and calling, a safety system designed to reduce human errors. It may seem a bit silly, but its effectiveness is remarkable. Pointing and calling reduces errors by up to 85% and decreases the accident rate by 30%. Based on this finding, if we consciously stay alert to our own lives, knowing what we are actually doing, it can be very helpful for changing bad habits and establishing good ones. For example, using the pointing and calling approach, list all your habits, presenting them clearly in front of you. When they become obvious, you can better distinguish between good and bad habits. Only when these habits, which are controlled by the subconscious, are clearly displayed and consciously seen and attended to, can we recognize them and make changes. This is the first rule in cultivating good habits. Only when the habits controlled by the subconscious are vividly presented and consciously seen and attended to, can we recognize them and make changes. The second rule for cultivating good habits is to make them attractive. Gray geese are birds that build nests on the ground. When a female goose is incubating eggs, she may accidentally roll one onto the nearby grass. In such cases, the gray goose will waddle towards the egg and use its beak and neck to pull it back into the nest. Interestingly, gray geese may even collect any nearby spherical objects, such as billiard balls or light bulbs, and bring them into the nest. The larger the object, the more significant their response. One diligent gray goose managed to roll a volleyball into the nest and lay on top of it. Here, the gray geese follow an instinctive rule: when I see a spherical object nearby, I must bring it into the nest. The larger the spherical object, the more effort I need to exert. Scientists refer to these exaggerated cues as supernormal stimuli. Humans also easily fall into the mesmerizing trap of an enhanced reality. For instance, junk food sends our reward system into a frenzy. In modern society, the primary goal of food science is to create more attractive products for consumers. Scientists always find the excitement points of each product, the precise combination of salt, sugar, and fat that stimulates your brain, making you unable to resist eating more and craving for more even after finishing. The super delicious nature of certain foods makes them more attractive to the human brain, causing overeating. The modern food industry and the binge-eating habits it fosters are examples of transforming the second law: make it attractive. The more attractive the opportunity in front of you, the greater the likelihood of forming a habit. Therefore, if you want to increase the probability of a certain behavior occurring, you need to make it attractive. Habits operate on a dopamine-driven feedback loop. When dopamine levels rise, the motivation to take action becomes stronger. In other words, the higher the expectation, the larger the dopamine peak. Leveraging the powerful force of dopamine, we can pair things we desire to do with things we need to do, using temptation bundling to make habits more attractive. For example, if your favorite activity is watching movies or TV shows, and you also know you should exercise more, even though you don't enjoy it, you can combine these two activities. Tell yourself that you can only watch after completing 10 push-ups. This way, you can turn daunting habits into attractive ones. Now let's delve into the third rule for cultivating good habits: make it easy. Professor Jerry Yulesman at the University of Florida divided his film photography students into two groups. He explained that everyone on the left side of the classroom belonged to the quantity group, where the sole criterion for grading would be the quantity of their work. On the last day of class, he would count the number of photos each student submitted. For example, submitting 100 photos would earn an A, 90 photos would result in a B, 80 photos would receive a C, and so on. Meanwhile, everyone on the right side of the classroom belonged to the quality group, where the sole criterion for grading was the quality of their work. They only needed to create one photo throughout the semester, but for it to earn an A, it had to be near perfect. Surprisingly, at the end of the semester, all outstanding works came from students in the quantity group. These students were busy taking photos, experimenting with various compositions and lighting, and testing exposure techniques in the darkroom, gaining valuable experience in the process of creating hundreds of photos. The quality group, on the other hand, engaged in repetitive discussions, daydreaming about achieving perfection. In the end, apart from unverified theories and one mediocre photo, they had nothing else to show for their efforts. Therefore, if you want to make the process of cultivating habits simpler and more feasible, the key first step is to abandon the pursuit of perfection. Starting simple and gradually increasing the frequency of practice is enough. It's important to note that repetition is not a monotonous action, rather, it evolves into a more automated process. Many times, we fail to realize this. When you want to exercise, you might give up due to the difficulty and hardships. When you think about learning a new language, the daunting path ahead might lead to abandonment. In such situations, what you need to do is simplify the starting process. Turn the daily 30-minute workout into just one push-up, spend 10 seconds putting on your workout shoes before exercising, or transform the 30-minute daily language learning plan into just studying one word, and lay out all the necessary study materials before starting. These processes make your first step simple and feasible. Research indicates that the more you optimize your environment and strategies, the easier it is to take the first step. Remember, the less energy a habit requires, the greater the likelihood of repeating the behavior. So, we can't help but ask, does this mean that the more energy a habit requires, the less likely it is to be repeated? Indeed, this reverse understanding and approach can be applied to breaking bad habits. If you find it challenging to control the time and frequency you spend on your iPad every day, you can seek help from your family. Introduce more obstacles to its use, such as setting a password that restricts usage during specific times, or locking your device in a box placed at a height that is inconvenient to reach. These obstacles effectively reduce the repetition of bad habits, ultimately preventing them from occurring. The fourth rule for cultivating good habits is to make it satisfying. Once we experience the pleasure of doing something, we are likely to be willing to repeat the action, and this is entirely logical. Unfortunately, people tend to choose immediate gratification and avoid delayed satisfaction. These two choices lead to completely different outcomes, as the first fruit of a habit may be sweet, but the subsequent ones can be bitter. When people indulge in alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or other substances that provide immediate and intense sensations, the consequences that follow may be bitter. On the other hand, if you are willing to wait for the reward, continually train yourself in the habit of delayed gratification, you will face less competition and generally receive greater rewards. Research has found that those who can persevere until the end are a minority, but these individuals tend to have higher test scores, are less likely to engage in drug use, have a lower risk of obesity, cope better with stress, and possess stronger social skills. The author points out in the book, at some point, success in almost every field demands that you ignore an immediate reward in favor of a delayed reward. It is crucial to distinguish between good habits and bad habits. Once this premise is clear, for activities that have long-term benefits, you can add a bit of immediate joy to increase the likelihood of repeating the behavior next time. For activities without such benefits, you can add a bit of immediate pain to make the repeated behavior seem meaningless. For example, if you have a bad habit of excessive spending, to cultivate a good habit, you can track and record your unhealthy spending behavior. Presenting the truth to yourself, every wasted penny in every example of excessive monthly spending, will make your future spending feel stressful and painful, reducing the likelihood of repeating the behavior. On the other hand, you can create a new account for yourself. Every time you resist the urge to spend impulsively, deposit the corresponding amount of saved money into this account. It will give you a sense of satisfaction and joy because the most pleasurable feeling is the feeling of progress. This summarizes the main content of the fourth rule. Let's briefly summarize the entire book. Building a personal system requires continually establishing and reinforcing good habits while eliminating bad ones. It differs from setting goals, as the system emphasizes a long-term, continuous improvement process. To cultivate good habits, 4 key principles should be followed, making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. This involves using pointing and calling to understand whether habits are good or bad, consolidating good habits, establishing new ones, and eliminating bad habits. To make the process more attractive, leverage the dopamine power of desire by combining activities you love with those you don't. Additionally, strive to simplify the initiation of new habits with small tasks. While developing good habits, even small progress should be immediately rewarded to make the habit-forming process joyful and satisfying. Everyone's habits are determined by their personality and genetics, so choosing the right habits that suit oneself is crucial. It has nothing to do with the habits others possess or current trends. In fact, only habits that bring joy can be sustained in the long run. Choosing the right habits makes progress effortless, while selecting the wrong ones turns life into a perpetual struggle. Congratulations on finishing another book. Keep it up.